The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway buzzed like dying insects, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made healthy people look half dead. I walked slowly toward room 314, my sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum, carrying the wool blanket Lola had asked for, the one from her bedroom, the blue one with tiny roses that smelled like her lavender soap, and decades of quiet mornings. I should have knocked. I always knocked. But something made me stop just outside her door, my hand frozen inches from the wood. Voices, low, urgent, familiar. "Just sign the papers, Ma. You don't want things to get complicated." My father's voice, Eduardo, the man who'd been a stranger for most of my 17 years, who'd returned 3 months ago with his pressed shirts and his real estate license, acting like he'd never left, acting like we owed him something. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. Through the crack in the door, I could see him leaning over Lola's bed, a manila folder in his hands. His back was straight, shoulders tense, businesslike. Even here, even with his own dying mother, he looked like he was closing a deal. "Kuya Eri?" Lola's voice was paper-thin but steady. "I told you I need time to think." "There is no time." He set the folder on her bedside table with a soft thud. "The house needs repairs you can't afford. Robin needs stability. This is the smart thing to do." My throat tightened. The house. Our house. The 2-story Victorian on Ashland Avenue where Lola had raised me after Mom died, where she'd taught me to make adobo and fold fitted sheets and say my prayers in Tagalog, where every creaking floorboard and faded wallpaper pattern held 12 years of her stories. "You think I don't know what's smart?" Lola's eyes, still sharp despite everything, fixed on my father. "You think I'm some foolish old woman?" "I think you're sick, and I think you're letting emotion cloud your judgment." Eduardo pulled a pen from his jacket pocket, the silver kind that probably cost more than Lola's monthly grocery budget. "This power of attorney is temporary, just until you're feeling better." The lie sat heavy in the room like smoke. We all knew Lola wasn't getting better. The cancer had made sure of that. I wanted to burst through that door, to tell him to stop, to leave her alone. But my feet felt welded to the floor. This was Eduardo Pingle, the man who'd taught me that my opinion didn't matter, that children were meant to be seen and not heard, that I was lucky he'd come back at all. Instead, I backed away slowly, the blanket clutched against my chest like armor. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it, walking quickly toward the elevator, past the nurse's station, past the gift shop with its wilted flowers and get-well balloons. In the parking lot, snow was beginning to fall, tiny flakes that melted the moment they hit the warm asphalt. I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers and typed a message to Amira, my best friend, the only person who knew the whole truth about my family. "He's trying to take the house." I saw it. 3 dots appeared immediately, then her response. "What are you going to do?" I stared at the screen, watching snowflakes collect on the glass. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something sharp and clear cut through my fear. I don't know yet, but something. The key still worked, even though Eduardo had changed the locks on the front door. I slipped through the back entrance, the one that led directly into Lola's kitchen, where the linoleum was worn thin from decades of her careful steps between stove and sink. The house felt wrong, half empty. Cardboard boxes sat stacked against the walls like tombstones, labeled in Eduardo's precise handwriting. Kitchen items, books, donate. As if Lola's entire life was. I told myself I was here for her reading glasses, the ones she'd forgotten and asked for during my last visit. But really, I was here to breathe in the smell of home one more time. Sandalwood incense and Vicks VapoRub, and the faint sweetness of sampaguita flowers she kept in mason jars on the windowsill. My footsteps echoed differently now, hollow and strange. In the living room, the old upright piano sat silent, its bench pushed aside. Sheet music scattered the floor. Hymns in Tagalog, Christmas carols with yellowed edges. I remembered Lola's fingers moving across those keys every Sunday morning, her voice soft and clear as she sang songs from her childhood. Behind the old mantel clock, tucked in the space where Lola always hid her spare rosary, I found something else. A manila folder, thinner than Eduardo's, but official-looking. The tab read, Power of Attorney, R.P., in Lola's careful cursive. My hands trembled as I opened it. The document was notarized, dated 3 years ago. The language was formal, legal, but one name jumped out at me like a shout. Rafael Pingul. Rafael. Rafi. The brother Eduardo never talked about. The uncle whose name had been scrubbed from family photos and dinner conversations. The ghost in our family tree. I read the document twice, my heart pounding. Lola had already given someone power of attorney, not Eduardo. His other son, the one he'd called dead to us, the one time I'd been brave enough to ask. Outside, snow began to stick to the windows, blurring the world beyond. I folded the document carefully and slipped it into my jacket pocket, next to Lola's forgotten glasses. Eduardo's plan wasn't just manipulative, it was pointless, maybe even illegal. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Lola was 3 steps ahead all along. I pulled out my phone and texted Amira. Found something. Can you help me find someone? Her response came immediately. Always. Who are we looking for? My uncle, the one who might save everything. I locked the house behind me, but this time it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like the beginning of a fight I might actually win. The diner on Western Avenue smelled like burnt coffee and hope deferred. Amira sat across from me in our usual booth, the one with the cracked vinyl seat and the view of the bus stop where we used to wait together before Eduardo decided I needed to live somewhere more appropriate for a young man. She'd brought her laptop, the ancient Dell that wheezed like an old dog, but somehow always got the job done. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the confidence of someone who'd helped me research everything from algebra homework to the immigration process when Lola's cousin needed help with her papers. Okay, so Rafael Pingul, she said, squinting at the screen. Your dad never mentioned having a brother. Never. I asked once when I was maybe 10, found an old photo in Lola's bedroom, 2 little boys standing next to a jeepney. When I showed it to Eduardo, he got this look on his face. Cold. Said, he's gone. Let him stay gone. Amira's eyebrows shot up. Damn, what did he do? I don't know. Lola would just get quiet whenever I brought it up after that, like it was too painful to talk about. Well, someone named Rafael Pingul definitely exists. She turned the laptop toward me. LinkedIn profile. Community outreach director at a nonprofit in Milwaukee. Look at this picture. The photo showed a man in his 40s with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. He wore a simple button-down shirt and was standing next to what looked like a community garden, kids gathered around him. But it was his smile that made my breath catch. Soft, genuine, exactly like Lola's. That's him, I whispered. That has to be him. Says he works with immigrant families, housing assistance, legal aid, that kind of thing. Amira clicked through his profile. He's been there for 8 years. Before that, she scrolled down. Chicago Public Schools, social worker. I stared at the screen, trying to reconcile this gentle-faced stranger with the family ghost Eduardo had created. He stayed in Chicago, All this time he was just here. You want to message him? My hands shook as I took the laptop. What do you say to an uncle who doesn't know you exist? How do you explain that his mother is dying and his brother is trying to steal her life away? I typed slowly. Hi, my name is Robin Pingul. I think you're my uncle. My Lola Mila is in the hospital and I think she needs you. I stared at the words for a long moment, then hit send before I could lose my nerve. Now what? Amira asked. Now we wait. I closed the laptop and looked out at the snow-covered street. Hope that family isn't just about blood. Hope it's about showing up when someone needs you. My phone buzzed, a notification from LinkedIn. Tell me when and where. I waited by the hospital entrance, watching my breath turn to vapor in the cold December air. 20 minutes early, pacing between the automatic doors and the sculpture of healing hands that some donor had probably paid too much for. Every middle-aged Filipino man who walked past made my heart jump. When he finally appeared, I knew him immediately, not just from the LinkedIn photo, but from something deeper. The way he carried himself, careful and quiet like Lola. He wore a thrifted wool coat that had seen better decades, and boots that squeaked slightly against the wet concrete. Robin? His voice was softer than I had expected, uncertain. Tito Rafi. The word felt strange on my tongue. I'd never called anyone Tito before, never had uncles who showed up when called. We stood there for a moment, two strangers connected by blood and circumstance, studying each other's faces for signs of family. His eyes were darker than Eduardo's, gentler. Lines around them suggested he smiled more than my father ever had. You look like her. Like your Lola when she was young. She had that same serious expression when she was thinking hard about something. I pulled the folder from my jacket, hands numb from cold and nerves. I found this at the house. Eduardo's trying to get her to sign new papers, but she already... Rafi took the document, unfolding it carefully. His eyes moved across the legal text, and something shifted in his face. Surprise, maybe? Relief? She remembered. He whispered. You knew about this? 3 years ago, she called me. Just once. Said she was putting her affairs in order and wanted to make sure the house stayed in the family. Not just any family. He looked up at me. The right family. A hospital employee wheeled past us, pushing an empty gurney. The sound of its squeaky wheel filled the silence between us. Why did Eduardo... I started, then stopped. Some questions felt too big for a first meeting. He never forgave me for staying when he left. After your mom died, he wanted to sell everything, start fresh somewhere else. I told him he was running away from grief, not towards anything better. We said things. He shook his head. He cut me off completely. Changed his number, moved. I tried to reach out through your Lola, but he made it clear I wasn't welcome. And now he's back. And now he's back. Rafi folded the document and handed it back to me. But this changes everything. Are you ready to see him find that out? Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I thought about Lola lying in that hospital bed, tired and small but still fighting, about the house full of memories being sorted into donation boxes, about Eduardo's cold calculation and Lola's warm defiance. I'm ready. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt endless. Rafi stood beside me, the power of attorney document folded in his coat pocket, his presence both comforting and terrifying. We were about to detonate 12 years of carefully constructed silence. Rule 314 was quieter now. Lola lay propped against her pillows, eyes closed, the afternoon light from the window making her look fragile as tissue paper. But when Rafi stepped through the doorway, something changed in the air. Her eyes opened slowly, focused, and her lips parted in recognition. Anak, she whispered, the Tagalog word for child carrying decades of love and loss. Rafi moved to her bedside as if pulled by gravity. Ma, he said, his voice breaking slightly, I'm here. I watched them, These two people who'd been kept apart by pride and anger, reaching for each other's hands across years of silence. Lola's fingers, thin and cold, wrapped around his. That's when Eduardo walked in. He stopped dead in the doorway, a cup of coffee frozen halfway to his lips. His face cycled through expressions: confusion, recognition, fury, before settling into the cold mask I knew too well. What the hell is he doing here? "Hello, Kuya," Raffi said quietly, not turning around. His hand remained in Lola's. "Don't you dare." Eduardo's voice was ice. "You have no right to be here, no right to—" Actually, he does. Dr. Vasquez appeared behind Eduardo, chart in hand. She'd been Lola's physician for months, had seen enough family drama to recognize a storm brewing. "I need to speak with whoever has medical power of attorney." Eduardo straightened, confident. "That would be me. I've been handling all her affairs since—" "No." Raffi pulled the document from his pocket, unfolded it slowly. "That would be me." The silence stretched like a held breath. Dr. Vasquez took the papers, her eyes moving across the legal text with professional efficiency. Eduardo's coffee cup trembled in his hand. "This appears to be in order," Dr. Vasquez said finally. "Notarized 3 years ago, witnessed and filed properly. Mr. Rafael Pingul is listed as having both medical and financial power of attorney." Eduardo's face went white, then red. "That's impossible. She never—" "Ma, tell them. Tell them you didn't sign this." Lola's voice was barely audible, but clear. "He's always had my trust." "This is ridiculous!" Eduardo slammed his coffee cup on the bedside table, liquid splashing. "She was coerced. She didn't understand what she was signing." "Mr. Pingul," Dr. Vasquez's voice carried the authority of someone who dealt with family greed before. "I've been your mother's physician for 8 months. She has been mentally competent throughout her treatment. If you have concerns about this document, you're welcome to consult with legal counsel." Eduardo stared at his brother, at his mother, at me. For a moment, I saw something crack in his composure. Not grief, but the fury of a man whose carefully laid plans had just crumbled. He walked out without another word. The hospital cafeteria smelled like disinfectant and reheated meatloaf. I sat alone at a corner table, picking at a sandwich I couldn't taste, when Eduardo found me. He slid into the seat across from me, with the controlled movements of a man barely keeping his rage in check. "Proud of yourself?" His voice was quiet, dangerous. "Playing little detective, bringing him back into our lives?" I set down my sandwich and looked at him, really looked at him. The expensive suit that couldn't hide the desperate hunger in his eyes. The manicured hands that had never changed a diaper or stayed up all night with a sick child. This man who donated sperm and disappeared, returning only when there was something to gain. "He never left our lives," I said. "You just pretended he didn't exist." "You have no idea what you're talking about." Eduardo leaned forward, his voice dropping to a hiss. "That man walked away from responsibility, from family obligations, while I was building a career, making something of myself, while you were abandoning your son." The words hung between us like a slap. Eduardo's jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought he might hit me. Instead, he laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Abandoning. I came back. I could have stayed away, let you and the old woman figure it out on your own, but I came back to clean up the mess, to make sure you had a future. You came back for the house." The truth felt good in my mouth, clean and sharp. "You only came back when you needed money. That house is falling apart. She can't maintain it. You can't afford it. I was trying to save something from this disaster. You were trying to save yourself." Eduardo's mask slipped then, just for a second. I saw the desperation underneath,
The fear of a man whose real estate deals had gone bad, whose second chance at success was slipping away. "You'll see," he said, standing abruptly. "You'll see what happens when loyalty is wasted on people who don't deserve it, when sentiment trumps sense." I watched him walk away, his footsteps echoing off the cafeteria's tile walls. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Raffi. "He's not done fighting." The response came quickly. "Neither are we." For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to have family that stayed when things got hard. Real family. The kind that showed up not when it was convenient, but when it mattered. "So will you," I whispered to Eduardo's retreating figure, even though he was already gone. The hospital's conference room had been transformed into a makeshift courtroom. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as a court-appointed judge reviewed documents spread across the polished table. Eduardo sat rigid in his chair, flanked by a lawyer who'd probably charged him more than Lola's monthly medication costs. Across from them, Raffi and I waited with Dr. Vasquez, who'd agreed to testify despite her busy schedule. She kept checking her watch, 2 surgeries this afternoon, but her expression remained calm, professional. "Mr. Eduardo Pingul, you're claiming your mother was mentally incompetent when she signed this power of attorney 3 years ago?" Eduardo's lawyer spoke first. "Your Honor, Mrs. Pingul was grieving the loss of her daughter-in-law, caring for a young child, and clearly vulnerable to influence. The timing of this document suggests—" "Objection to the characterization," Dr. Vasquez interrupted quietly. "If I may." The judge nodded. Dr. Vasquez opened her file, the same methodical way she approached everything. "I've been Mrs. Pingul's oncologist for 8 months. I've also reviewed her complete medical history dating back 5 years. There is no evidence of cognitive impairment, dementia, or any condition that would affect her decision-making capacity." "But 3 years ago," Eduardo's lawyer started. "3 years ago, she was a healthy 74-year-old woman who just lost her daughter-in-law in a car accident. Grief is not incompetence. In fact, the timing suggests careful planning during a period when she was acutely aware of life's uncertainties. She was manipulated. My brother has always—" "Mr. Pingul," the judge's voice carried warning. "Your brother isn't on trial here. The question is whether your mother had the mental capacity to make this decision." I watched Eduardo's face as his careful narrative crumbled. This wasn't about Lola's well-being or my future. This was about a man who'd abandoned his family facing the consequences of that choice. The judge reviewed the documents one final time. "The power of attorney is notarized, witnessed by 2 independent parties, and executed by someone with no documented mental health issues. Dr. Vasquez's testimony confirms Mrs. Pingul's continued competence." She looked up. "The original document stands." Eduardo's lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear. Eduardo shook his head sharply, stood, and walked out without a word. No goodbye, no acknowledgement, just the sound of expensive shoes clicking against linoleum, fading into silence. "Robin," Raffi's voice was gentle. "You okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure. Winning felt different than I'd expected. Not triumphant, just quiet. Like the end of something that should have ended years ago.
"Let's go see your Lola," he said. For the first time in days, that felt like exactly the right thing to do. Lola's breathing had changed, shallower now, with longer pauses between each rise and fall of her chest. The morphine drip kept her comfortable, Dr. Vasquez had said, but we all knew what comfortable meant in a place like this. Raffi sat in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand. I brought her rosary from the house, the blue one with the silver cross, that she'd carried to every funeral, every difficult conversation, every moment when she needed something stronger than herself to lean on. "The tree," she whispered suddenly, her eyes fluttering open. "Did I tell you about the mango tree?" No, Lola. I moved closer, adjusting her blanket. Tell me. Her voice was paper-thin but steady. Back home, in Batan, there was this mango tree in our yard. Huge thing, older than my grandmother. When the typhoons came, all the other trees would bend and break, but not that mango tree. Raffi squeezed her hand gently. Ma, you should rest. No, let me finish. She looked at me with eyes that were still sharp despite everything. My little brother, your Lolo Ernesto, he was afraid of storms. He'd run inside, hide under the bed. But I'd stand by that tree, watching it hold steady while the wind tried to knock it down. She paused, gathering strength. You know why it never fell? Because it knew when to bend and when to hold firm. It had deep roots, but it wasn't rigid. It gave the storm what it couldn't fight, but protected what mattered. I felt tears building behind my eyes. Lola, that boy by the tree, that was you today, Anak. Standing steady while everything else was falling apart, not running away, not breaking, just staying. Her hand moved weakly to my cheek, cool and soft like tissue paper. Don't let them sell the house, Robin. Let it breathe. Let it be what it was always meant to be, a place where people belong. I promise, Lola. Raffi? She turned to her son, the one who'd stayed in her heart even when anger tried to push him out. Take care of him. Teach him what I couldn't. Always, Ma. She closed her eyes, a small smile touching her lips. Good boys. Both my good boys. The machines beeped steadily through the night. Sometime around 3 a.m, when the hospital was at its quietest and the snow had stopped falling outside, Lola Mila Pingul took her final breath. Her hand was still warm in mine when the sun came up, painting the room golden with morning light. Like she was still there, still keeping watch, still making sure we knew we were loved.
Lola's breathing had changed, shallower now, with longer pauses between each rise and fall of her chest. The morphine drip kept her comfortable, Dr. Vasquez had said, but we all knew what comfortable meant in a place like this. Raffi sat in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand. I'd brought her rosary from the house, the blue one with the silver cross that she'd carried to every funeral, every difficult conversation, every moment when she needed something stronger than herself to lean on. The tree, she whispered suddenly, her eyes fluttering open. Did I tell you about the mango tree? No, Lola. I moved closer, adjusting her blanket. Tell me. Her voice was paper-thin but steady. Back home, in Batan, there was this mango tree in our yard. Huge thing, older than my grandmother. When the typhoons came, all the other trees would bend and break, but not that mango tree. Raffi squeezed her hand gently. Ma, you should rest. No, let me finish. She looked at me with eyes that were still sharp despite everything. My little brother, your Lolo Ernesto, he was afraid of storms. He'd run inside, hide under the bed, but I'd stand by that tree, watching it hold steady while the wind tried to knock it down. She paused, gathering strength. You know why it never fell? Because it knew when to bend and when to hold firm. It had deep roots, but it wasn't rigid. It gave the storm what it couldn't fight, but protected what mattered. I felt tears building behind my eyes. Lola.
That boy by the tree, that was you today, Anak, standing steady while everything else was falling apart, not running away, not breaking, just staying. Her hand moved weakly to my cheek, cool and soft like tissue paper. Don't let them sell the house, Robin. Let it breathe. Let it be what it was always meant to be. A place where people belong. I promise, Lola. Rafi. She turned to her son, the one who'd stayed in her heart even when anger tried to push him out. Take care of him. Teach him what I couldn't. Always, Ma. She closed her eyes, a small smile touching her lips. Good boys. Both my good boys. The machines beeped steadily through the night. Sometime around 3 in the morning, when the hospital was at its quietest and the snow had stopped falling outside, Lola Nila Pingle took her final breath. Her hand was still warm in mine when the sun came up, painting the room golden with morning light. Like she was still there, still keeping watch, still making sure we knew we were loved. The funeral was small. Neighbors from Ashland Avenue, a few ladies from St. Augustine's who'd known Lola from the Filipino prayer group, Amira and her parents. Dr. Vasquez came, still in her scrubs between shifts. The priest spoke in both English and Tagalog, and when Mrs. Santos sang Ave Maria in the language of Lola's childhood, I finally cried. Eduardo didn't come. Neither did anyone from his side of whatever life he'd built away from us. It should have hurt more than it did, but sitting between Rafi and Amira in the front pew, I realized some absences speak louder than presence ever could. 3 days after we buried her, I found the first letter on my pillow. Cream-colored stationery, in Lola's careful handwriting, my name written in the blue ink she'd always preferred. My dearest Robin, if you're reading this, then I've gone home to your mama and all the people I've missed. Don't be sad for too long, Anak. Sadness is for things that are broken, but love doesn't break just because bodies do. The house is yours now, but not to own, to protect. Home is who you choose to carry forward. Fill it with people who need belonging. Make it breathe again. You have a good heart. Trust it. All my love, Lola. I was still holding her letter when I found the second one, slipped into my backpack sometime between the funeral and now. Rafi's handwriting, messier but warm. Robin, your Lola made me promise to write this if anything happened to her. She said you'd need to hear it from someone other than a sick old woman. Her words, not mine. You've got what it takes, kid. I don't know what that is exactly. Strength, courage, stubborn loyalty to what's right. But watching you these past weeks, I see why she chose you to carry things forward. I'm staying in Chicago, if you'll have me. Not to take over or make decisions for you, but to be the family you deserve, the kind that shows up. Uncle Rafi. I sat on the edge of my bed, surrounded by moving boxes Eduardo never bothered to unpack, holding these 2 letters like anchors. Outside, snow was falling again, covering the street in silence. My phone buzzed with a text from Amira. Legal notice came in the mail. Eduardo formally withdrew his claim to the house. It's over. Good, I texted back. Now we can begin. 20 minutes later, Rafi knocked on my bedroom door. You ready to go see the house? Figure out what we're going to do with it? I folded both letters carefully and put them in my wallet. Yeah, I'm ready. The house looked different in the afternoon light. Not empty, but waiting. Snow melted in patches across the front yard, revealing winter-brown grass and the promise of spring underneath. I stood on the porch with Rafi and Amira, the key warm in my palm. You sure about this? Rafi asked, though he was smiling. I thought about Lola's words. Let it breathe. Make it a place where people belong. The idea had been growing in my mind for days, taking shape like something I'd always known but never had words for. Community center, I said, unlocking the front door. Cultural center, maybe. Somewhere immigrant families can get help with paperwork, learn English, celebrate holidays together. Like what you do in Milwaukee, but here.
Amira pushed past us both, already envisioning possibilities. The living room could be a meeting space. Kitchen's perfect for cooking classes. Imagine Lola teaching people to make adobo properly. She'd like that, Raffi said quietly. Inside, the house felt different than it had during those last weeks with Eduardo. The afternoon sun streamed through windows Lola had always kept spotless, highlighting dust motes that danced like tiny spirits. Her piano sat silent in the corner, sheet music still scattered around it. I found her recipe box in the kitchen, index cards yellowed with age and stained with decades of cooking. Adobo, pancit, babinka for Christmas morning, each card written in her careful handwriting, some with notes in the margins. Extra garlic, Robin likes it better this way. Or Mama's original recipe from Bataan. We could scan these, Amira suggested, looking over my shoulder. Share them with families who come here. Keep the traditions alive. Raffi was examining the basement, checking pipes and foundation. Structure's solid, needs some updates, but nothing we can't handle. I walked through each room slowly, seeing not what was, but what could be. The dining room where families could share meals and stories. Lola's bedroom transformed into a quiet space for difficult conversations about immigration law or medical bills. The upstairs rooms for English classes, citizenship test prep, maybe a small library. As the sun began to set, I stepped into the backyard. The old fence needed repair, but the soil looked good, rich and dark, ready for planting. "What are you thinking?" Raffi asked, joining me by the back porch. I knelt down, brushing snow away from a patch of earth near the fence. "Mango tree," I said, like in Lola's story, something with deep roots that knows how to bend but never breaks. Raffi grinned. "Think a mango tree can survive Chicago winters?" "With the right care," I said, standing and brushing dirt from my hands. "Everything can survive with the right care." The house waited behind us, patient and full of possibility, ready to breathe again. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.